Welcome to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. Thanks for joining us this week. And I hope as you listen to the show, number one, you feel my passion that, look, I get change is really, really hard, especially if the change is thrust upon us and you haven't chosen that change. Well, to help you or help guide you as you navigate change, I have in the show notes, you'll find my free gift, which is my communication style assessment. You will get 2 reports. First report is just spotlight your natural communication superpowers, really how people receive your messaging. Flip side, you'll get a second report, which is your lowest score. Sometimes I feel like that's even more valuable because it could be a potential blind spot of people who communicate opposite of you. How are they receiving your messaging? So again, that link is in the show notes. It's my gift to you. And I hope it truly helps you navigate change and whatever that means to you. Communication is kind of an important piece of change. Now, my motivational quote, just to set the stage for my guest and my conversation today, is by Marianne Williamson. And she says, "You must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be." I just loved that quote when I saw it because I believe that our minds really are a powerful tool to help us achieve whatever our life's desires are. As long as we change our thoughts, you know what Wayne Dyer says, change your thoughts and the reality follows. And I do believe that. Remember the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? And that might be a true statement unless you create a new neural pathway in what we call neuroplasticity in our brain, where you could continue to create life in the same way over and over again, because the mind doesn't have another path, story, or belief that it can build from. Now, my guest today, of course, she's an expert in this topic of neuroplasticity, and her name is Krishna Avalon. Krishna is a licensed acupuncturist, subconscious therapist, Psych K facilitator. If you've never had that done, very cool. And a breathwork guide who has led over 26,000 patients and clients to their health and wellness goals for the last 20 years. So please help me welcome the amazing Krishna to the show. So Krishna, thank you so much for being on and taking time out of your day. I'm excited about our conversation.
Connie, I feel your excitement and I loved your lead up to my intro. It was perfect.
Wasn't that so cool? So, I'm dating myself, but it was 22 years ago. I had turned 40 and somebody had referred Wayne Dyer to me. And I thought, oh, I'd love to read, and I picked up I think it was Wishes Fulfilled was the first book I've read. I don't know if you've read it. And that whole premise of our thoughts become our reality, change your thoughts and the reality in front of you changes. And my life was changed forever. And I read everything he ever wrote because I feel like we have more control in our lives than we think. And you are one of those practitioners out there who helps us get out of our own way to create really the lives we desire, but I think even more the life that we truly deserve. So to talk about, how did you come into this amazing work? I believe that is needed today, just because it's pretty bad out there with certain aspects. So how did you stumble upon this?
Yeah, isn't it? It's like the work that the people need right now, especially since pandemic, because most people are trying to feel safe in the unknown, trust who they are, feel safe being seen, feel safe using their voice, feeling deserving and believing that they're worthy of this, that, and the other, healthy love, relationships, money, being inspired, connection. And so for me, acupuncture was my first love in this life. I have been doing it forever, 21 years now. I'm doing it less because a few years ago, maybe 2 years before the pandemic, I started hearing about the subconscious mind through Bruce Lipton, through Joe Dispenza, through Dr. Tara Swart, through some podcasts. And once I went down that path of learning, I became obsessed. And then I learned about or heard about the process of Psych K, and my intuition was just like, ding. And I looked into it and found there was one practitioner here in Portland, Oregon, offering sessions. And so I went and saw her. I didn't actually notice much difference, but I knew I wanted to train in it. So that was maybe a year and a half before pandemic. And when pandemic hit, like so many people, my business had to close for 9 weeks and I had to shift gears and my kid was at home and I'd already wanted to change. I've been an acupuncturist for 17, 18 years. I'm so good at it. I've built several practices. I've sold a couple practices. I can do it with a blindfold on. It doesn't mean that it's the best thing for me, and it's very important for me personally to grow. So when pandemic hit, I was like, oh, I wonder if that woman, the same one who facilitated me, I wonder if she's teaching those classes. And so I looked online and she was, and I did all 4 trainings here in this house. This was actually her home where she taught this work for 12 years. And it's another magical story how I even came to buy this house. And so I did all 4 levels and I knew 100%, or 3 levels with her, I should say, here in this house. And I knew 100% that I wanted to go down this path for myself and guide other people's, because just like you were saying, this is like what people need right now. But I had to offer this one particular balance. In Psych K, we do balances, and it's called the transformation of stress or trauma, where you can very simply, peacefully unattach from stress and trauma and move on and have a new experience. So I offered that to maybe 15 of my patients just to see what would happen. Even though I knew in my own life shifts were happening from using this work, even though I 100% knew that I wanted to take this path, I still needed more proof because I'd been an acupuncturist for so long. And then the testimonials and the feedback I was getting from just that one balance with these people was phenomenal. And then I knew even more like, okay, I'm okay receiving money for this. I'm okay guiding people through this work with integrity because this is where it's at. So I've had so many patients that have had miraculous results with acupuncture. But to get to the foundation of how we create our lives, where we're stuck, where we're repeating patterns, where our beliefs are held, where our feedback loops are, peacefully unattaching from trauma, you have to work with the subconscious, because the subconscious mind is 97% of where we create our lives from. So if we all have programs and we're all creating life from these programs, what programs are you creating from? Typically, they're very contracted, limiting, and self-sabotaging. And this process, unlike other ways of working with the subconscious, you can not only peacefully unattach or uncouple from those traumatic or triggering or stressful events quickly and easily, you're also conscious for it. So unlike hypnotherapy, and you can create new beliefs and new perceptions, unlike other processes of working with the subconscious. So in short, that's how I came into it.
Yeah, but it started with you. Isn't that fascinating? I believe that change starts within us, that we know change is needed, and fill in the blank, whatever that means for you or for the listeners, right? Sometimes though, we don't listen to the whispers and we wait for the 2x4, health issues, loss of job, COVID, right? Where all of a sudden Mother Nature said, yeah, you all need to be on a timeout with COVID. Let's reevaluate a little bit, right? It almost forced us to go inside of ourselves or inside of our family and figure out what really is the priorities here. Is it chasing the career? Maybe it is. And I'm not judging that, right? I love making money. I love my business. But again, where is it for you to have that balance? The other thing you said, acupuncture, you loved it, but you knew something was missing for you developmentally, you, the human. What was that next chapter? What was around that next corner? You were craving it. And that's the other catalyst for change. I believe we crave, we don't know always what it is, but you think, oh, I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. I'm restless. I'm always thinking about whatever it might be. I'm always reading articles about. Listen to your inner guidance. I do believe it's there. And that brings me to my next question. Define for everybody, if you can, or differentiate between what is the conscious and the subconscious mind. And you said 75% of our internal navigation is subconsciously, right? It's the iceberg. It's below the water.
97.
It's 87%?
97.
97. I usually say 95. I thought you said 85 or 75.
Oh my God, then I made a mistake. 97% of our lives
yeah. It's funny when I start my isn't this funny, Krishna? I do sales training, but my first module in my training is mindset. and we talk about communication, but we also talk about the conscious, subconscious. And I have an iceberg and I say 5% is conscious, 95% we're being kind of navigated and fears are thrown in our way to be afraid of overstepping, in my case with the client, right? So it's the same though, that subconscious is navigating us and we don't even know the stories or those beliefs or those programmings oftentimes that are there because they happened right when we were kids. So just to find for everybody that 97.3%, the conscious versus the subconscious and how powerful our subconscious is.
Exactly. And I love that you use that iceberg analogy. But if we were computers, and I do not love comparing us human beings to computers. However, my teachers, they say if we were computers, 97% are the programs that we are running. So the programs do come from sometimes even before we're in utero. As a soul, right? But then whatever you're receiving from your mother while you're in the womb, whatever you're learning through your sensory as you come into the world, we are observing. Our brains as babies are in theta state until we're 7 years old. And the theta state of the brain is where we are most influential, where we're most like a sponge. That's why when we meditate before bed or first thing in the morning, when we're like sleepy, dreamy, it's the most powerful time to try and work with the subconscious through meditation or imagination. The conscious mind is like the keyboard that you're typing information into. It's important. It's very important, but like talk therapy, traditional talk therapy, that's only working with the conscious mind. Just that 3% of talk, process. But it's the subconscious where we hold our beliefs, our patterns, our habits, our feedback loops, and our memories. So you don't necessarily need to know what your limiting subconscious beliefs are. You just have to take a look at your life and be like, where am I repeating? Where's this like theme repeating for me? Why do my relationships keep sucking or having this like same thing happening? Why do I not have the job that I love? Why am I hitting resistance with this over and over? That shows you or me in facilitating you where you are stuck, where you're repeating trauma, where you're still triggered. Those are perfect things to work with this worksite, okay? And then you can also think about where you want to grow. So those are really just the two ways. You don't necessarily need to know what your limiting subconscious beliefs are. You might, if you have some awareness with yourself, know where you self-sabotage. If you start eating well or exercising and feeling good and you get to a certain point and you fall off and you don't follow through, or it's hard to make a decision for you in your life with this, that, and the other, that's something I work with a lot with people. That's a good indicator that you have some self-sabotaging behaviors, that you don't believe that you're worthy and deserving of clarity or of feeling good in your body or of feeling sexy in your body or feeling great. So those are some of the big ones that I work with people. So those are the two directions you can go really well with this work very easily. So sometimes people show up, they have absolutely no idea what they want to work with. Maybe they're all over the place. Maybe they're not quite sure how this work works, but they know they want to be here. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Some people come in with their lists and they're like, this is what I want. Or they come in with their lists and they're like, this is where I'm stressed. And that's great too.
We are works in progress, right, Krishna? And here's the other thing. And again, I've been on my spiritual journey personally for 22 years. So 2 observations with that. First observation is it's work. And I know the practice that you use with the Psyche, it fast forwards a lot. So I've worked with practitioners with Psyche and some other things, regression therapy, et cetera. So, but the movement, you have to commit, right? So people go, oh, that's good information, but they do nothing. There's no action behind it. You have to commit. You have to hire someone. You have to work with someone. You have to do the exercises, right? So that we can tap into what our subconscious is telling us. The other observation on that, I was about 40 when something happened and there was a shift of my awareness. And all of a sudden in my inbox, I tell the story frequently, but in my inbox and my email was all this law of attraction, manifestation, universal laws. And I was like, what the heck is this? I probably clicked on something out of curiosity. And then you know what happens, right? The marketing plethora opens, that volcano opens, and my inbox was flooded. I couldn't get enough of the information. So I was ready. I do believe that as the student, I was ready to learn about this stuff. So my other observation now, being in the world for 22 years, studying spirituality and all of these things we're talking about and I talk about on the show, the younger generation is already there. And I often think, wow, what could I have accomplished? And I have no regrets, by the way, with this statement, but I do want to make this statement that I look back and I think, wow, if I understood manifestation, if I understood how those thoughts become reality, if I understood what Psych-K was and how we could get rid of those traumas and move things through things with a lot more ease and grace, where would I be today? Right. And here's the thing. It's my journey. I wasn't supposed to learn until I was 40, right, about spirituality. So I really embrace when the kids today talk to me about, my kids' friends, they're in their 20s. And one young man, we just had the super blue full moon on the 30th of August, right? We're in September now. And one of the friends texted me and he said, oh, I just finished fasting. And did you see the moon? I did my blah, blah manifestation. And I read it to my husband. I said, gosh, these kids, they're so much more advanced than I ever was. But I love that they're embracing this topic and exploring it. And I truly hope for all of the youth today that it creates ease and grace in their life so that they could do so much more and serve bigger, because I think our world is so in need of that today.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you said how the subconscious work fast forwards some of the work. So I know that people also believe that, oh, I've had 40 years of this pattern. It's going to take me a while to shift. It actually does not have to.
No.
If you work with your subconscious, it does do the heavy lifting. And then just like you said, there are things that you can do to reinforce the new pathways in your mind that you create through doing this work. So it's like you do something like Psych-K, and then you use like affirmations or visualizations or a vision board or an action board to reinforce what you do with the subconscious work of Psych-K or whatever else you're using.
And the funny thing is, as soon as you start practicing it, right, again, your thoughts becoming reality, but as we practice it, you start doing it without thinking. Example would be, we manifest good parking spots at the beach. And I have my niece, she's 25. And she gets a front row spot every time. She's so cute. She does Kayla. Shout out to my bud Kayla over there. But she does, I'm manifesting, Aunt Con. And we joke. So we just do this now. And we know we're manifesting. It's just, it becomes a habit and a part of how you think about things based on all of the study and work that you do. The other thing I wanted to ask, talk about the neuroplasticity, because we think, well, this isn't going to work for me. My mind doesn't work that way. Talk about that neuroplasticity and how we can change those pathways.
Yeah, and you did mention that in the intro. You can teach an old dog new tricks if that dog wants to learn. And it is just about creating a new pathway in the mind so that you're in your brain so that you can have a new experience. And that's what neuroplasticity is, the brain's ability to have a new experience. So if you are in this perception in the world that you are not safe, or there is lack, or there's not enough, which is huge, right? That lack scarcity mindset. If I can outgrow that with what I came into the world with, you definitely can too. You can do stuff like repeat stuff, have affirmations. It might take a little longer. And for some people, habits kind of fall off, or they're harder to commit to good habits because they have such contracted beliefs about their worthiness and deservingness of, say, ease. That's a big one. They think and believe that they have to work hard to deserve something, to be worthy of love and acceptance. That's a huge one. So you can repeat stuff and you can have healthy habits over and over, and that does create neuroplasticity. But if you have a way to work with the subconscious that's even bigger at the heavy lifting, all of those commitments to healthy habits are going to be easier. And manifesting will be easier.
Yeah, life becomes easier. Again, I love that word ease that you used. And I could give a very tangible example. networking event, sat near this woman. We hit it off. She did, I don't think it was Psych K, but she did muscle testing. So a little bit different. And I had chronic pain in my right knee. And she says, I think you have some kind of block, and it lodged itself in your knee. But I think I had damaged my meniscus, went through therapy, it was chronic though. Sat with her and we did it virtually. We did a couple of sessions. Do you know, Krishna, that was about 10 years ago. I have not had pain. I'm not knock on wood as I say that, but I have not had pain in that knee. Don't know what the trauma was. Don't know why it settled there. Don't know any of that. I just know it's gone from doing this kind of work that you're talking about. So there's tangible things that you can help people with through working through that subconscious without us even realizing what's going on. So I like how you said it, that ease, that grace that comes with this work. Who do you think benefits the most from working with you? Is there a certain client that you have, or a certain type of person or situation that works best? What have you found? Because you've been doing this a long time now.
Yeah, I love working with people who've been in talk therapy for a long time and they're plateaued and stuck. They can't, they're still triggered. They're still angry. They're still avoidant. They're still anxious. And again, that's because you're working with your conscious mind, just doing this conscious mind processing, often perpetuating the same story. So some of the most profound work that I've been able to help people with recently is that kind of stuff where I'm talking like 4 or 5 sessions, and their therapist or their husband or their kids are like, who are you? Like normally you'd be yelling or irate in this situation, and you're just peaceful. So that I have been working with a lot of coaches lately who maybe coach others and have groups, because if you are a coach out there trying to front this way of being, or that you can guide others, but you haven't done subconscious expansion or work through your shadow or your wounding, you cannot fake that. You can't fake a frequency that is felt. So if you do not believe at your subconscious level that you're worthy and deserving of being seen as you are, or trusting your voice, or trusting that you have value, a lot of coaches will come to me and be like, I'm having a problem getting my coaching business off the ground. They're on social media all day, every day, and like, it's not really happening. So I've been working with a lot of coaches and also speaking to groups from coaches that I met, or podcast hosts like yourself, who have me come in and talk about the power of the subconscious mind and why it's super helpful to do a couple of sessions about being seen, about feeling safe being who you are. Like that's going to change your entire life. So anybody that is wanting to be an empowered creator of their life, and like finally let go of the places where we feel victimized or martyr, or trying to be a savior, to receive love and acceptance. Those are huge. Those are pretty foundational for people.
Yeah, big one.
Yeah,
big ones. It's funny because I think I often get, right, when I'm training and coaching my sales teams, they'll say things like, well, we don't have a choice. Soon as I hear that, I look at them and I go, we always have a choice with everything in your life. You might not like the situation, but you're at a crossroad. You have a choice. You could say, it is what it is. I can't move. I have a mortgage, whatever rhetoric or self-talk you're doing that I can't, because then that you've made that true for yourself. Or you have the choice to say, I'm not loving this. It's time for me to look for another job. I need the paycheck. Can't give up the paycheck because I have bills, kids in college, rent, whatever it might be. But I have a choice that I can make. So when they say that to me and they go, well, you don't know. And I say, I do know. You're living a life by default instead of a life by choice. But we always have a choice. And this is just one of those, if you feel stuck and you fill in the blank, whatever that means to you, maybe Krishna. And here's the other thing you said, and I want to make sure everybody heard it. It's a couple of sessions. How many times that we go into therapy for a year, 2 years, 10 years? and we really haven't worked through our own demons or whatever, that's that rhetoric, that self, that punitive talk, right? Those negative thoughts that we say to ourselves subconsciously, we don't even know they're happening, right? They're undercurrent, but they're affecting our life. It could be a couple of sessions that could transform your life. Is it really that easy? I know everybody's thinking she's out of her mind. It can't be that easy, right, Krishna?
It is, though. So there are two main balances that I'd work with like a single session or up to 3 session. One of them transforms stress and trauma. So if you have some sort of like annoying thought that's taking up your entire headspace and you just can't stop thinking about it, or it's a huge trigger in a trauma, or like a memory you try not to think about and you're like trying to stuff it in. Imagine being able to peacefully unattach to that and have all this space for new creation. We can do one balance and it can change your entire life. You can create a perception. Like imagine if you've always felt locked up in your voice and you hesitated in speaking, and then all of a sudden you created the belief or the perception, it's safe for me to use my voice. It's safe for me to be seen as I am. I can trust myself. I mean, that changes your entire life. And it's a very simple process. It doesn't take long. And then after a goal statement, it is cool, just like what you mentioned before, there is an action step that we create. So something that you will have to do, it can be small, that reinforces that belief that you just created so that it's easier for your subconscious mind to seek that information out in the world for you and show you, I trust myself. Show you I'm safe to be seen. Because currently what your subconscious mind is doing and your nervous system, it is finding information out in the world to reinforce whatever belief you're in, whether that is true or not. And typically it's very contracted or self-sabotaging. And it's why so many people perceive from lack and scarcity, or they perceive that they are not safe. It's because that's what the subconscious is believing. Or they believe that they're like worthy and deserving of this much money or safety or stability or security. But again, you could create a statement, I deserve ease and support. I deserve to be held by spirit. I can allow my mind to relax and God to guide me. I mean, whatever you want. It can be whatever you want it to be. And so often the shifts are very powerful and it's obvious. People are just doing things that they used to have all this negative self-talk about. Now they're just doing it without thinking about it. Sometimes it's subtle, but very powerful. So again, if all of a sudden you're like drinking your green juice every day and going for a run, and before you were just wanting to come home after work, lay on the couch, drink wine and watch Netflix, that is huge.
And usually they're baby steps that we could take to reinforce, right? The work that you're doing. Like you said, you create whatever that little action step is, and use the word little or small step. It's not this, okay, 6 hours a day, you need to focus on, it's not that much effort. It's almost effortless with what you're describing. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's so true, but it also is important that you do that very small action step. If it's small, it can be big, but we usually put a time stamp on it. So if your action step were, I am going to go for a walk on my break tomorrow instead of sitting at my computer eating lunch while I do work. I mean, then it just becomes easier. Like all of a sudden you're going for a walk. Or if you, yesterday, this is another huge one I work with, is boundaries. So a woman that I work with, she's been having some pretty intense back pain, and she created a goal statement or the perception that she's calm and confident and her boundaries are clear. She's been having problems with her ex-husband, not respecting her boundaries, feeling entitled to her energy, even 4 years after they've been divorced, right? And she just felt like she could never use her back pain went away. So just to your point earlier with your knee, you change your beliefs in your subconscious mind, you're changing your broadcast, you're changing your body's experience as well.
Yeah. It's the imposter syndrome, and we all have it, right, Krishna? I do that when I have a new client. The first thought when I start, the day before I start working with them, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm a fraud. why? I've been doing this 40 years. And the irony is I never get a bad review. No one's ever asked me for a refund, right? No one has ever said to me, that really sucked. That's probably the worst. Like never, ever in 40 years and 22 years in business yet. That's my thought going in, that what if I disappoint? And then of course, you have to backtrack and say, wait a minute, you're crazy, check. You're good. You know what you do. You're well-versed. You know your craft, right? Own that greatness. And the other thing too, is I stay in my lane. I don't know if you meet people, especially you're working with coaches, they think they can be everything to everybody. Stop. You can't. It's not possible for you to be everything for everybody. Stay in your zone of genius. And all of these changes that you're talking about, Krishna, becomes amplified so quickly, and it becomes really clear. Like you were saying, I was really good as an acupuncturist. Something in you shifted, not that your client said you were bad or they didn't need that work anymore. You needed something differently. And look how COVID and whatever those steps were that put you in the right place for you at the right time. Again, you went a little bit deeper, same kind of skill, but you leveled up. And I think we're afraid to level up for fear of failure, for fear of fill in the blanks, whatever it might be to you, right?
Yeah, and it can also be fear of abandonment, fear of not knowing who you are when you're not struggling in a certain way or settling in a certain way. For me, I love acupuncture. It is beautiful medicine and ancient medicine. It's so freaking cool. However, I wouldn't say I was jaded, but I was absolutely ready to grow.
Yes.
So yeah, there are three things in this life that I followed 1,000 and trusted. One was being an acupuncturist. The second was becoming a mom and mothering. It was always so great for me until my child became a teenager. Now I doubt myself sometimes. Thank God I have Psych K for my triggers as a parent and my fears. And then Psych K was the third thing. So it was just what I trusted, but it's not like that for everybody. And that's also another beautiful thing to work with the subconscious, is finding your path, finding clarity.
Yeah.
And you don't need to know what it's going to look like. You can just create the beliefs that you deserve to feel inspired in your work, that your joy matters, that it's safe to follow what makes you happy.
And I think we forget that joy should be a requirement in life. And yet we think, oh, I'm too busy to play. I'm too busy to fit that in. You said before, taking the walk or eating your lunch while you work, these simple little things, you're choosing joy, right? To be out in nature. If it's a beautiful day, why wouldn't you want to go for a 15-minute walk? It doesn't even have to be a long walk. You come back, you're even more rejuvenated. You become more productive instead of eating through lunch, thinking I'm going to be more productive. You're not, you're energetically drained, so that we have to be mindful of these things, but we forget to look up, right? I think that's the other thing too, Krishna. We forget to look up and see the opportunities, see the beauty, see what life has in store for us, see the changes that maybe we should be embracing or the paths we should be taking, because we're always looking down, working, doing, especially. And I think most of the world is turning into that. I know in the US, we are very driven. Like we don't take vacations. God forbid you should take a vacation and turn off your email, right? No, we can't do that. We have to be present at all times. We're out of time, but just anything, words of wisdom right at the ends for the listeners that maybe they can take and do as soon as they finish listening to the show, in addition to the resources we're going to share in a minute. But is there any piece of or nugget that you could throw out there for everyone?
Yeah, like what I really want you to know is that you are limitless as a being. You can be an empowered creator of your life. And I believe that that is why we are all here. We're not here to suffer. We're here to see what amazingness we can create and express in this world. And what was your question?
Oh, nugget, limitless.
Nugget. Yeah, something that you can do on your own to work with the subconscious, just like what you were saying, Connie, basically, is that repetition does get into the subconscious mind eventually. And the best times to work with that are in the morning before you even get out of bed. And at night, before you fall asleep, if you just took a couple minutes and closed your eyes and imagined what you wanted your life to feel like, the images, the pictures, the subconscious mind responds better to images than it does words.
Ah,
So it's not a bunch of like conscious mind chatter. Imagine and practice feeling. Do that in the morning and doing it at night. It's not that you can't do it in the middle of the day when you're all stressed. It's just that you're going to be more effective in those closer to theta state times. You can also listen to self-hypnosis. I haven't found one that I loved yet because I'm like, what are they saying to me that I can't totally hear while I'm sleeping? But I'm going to create one. You can find one. You can look for one that's like about health or love or happiness or money. And you could play that for yourself every night. I don't like technology in my bedroom at all when I sleep also, so I don't do that, but other people do. So you could listen to something like that.
you got to do you, right, Krishna? It doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for me. It might work for them. So we have to make sure, here's the thing, just try something, right? It's better than doing nothing, because doing nothing, guess what? Nothing's going to change. At least if you try something, it might not be the perfect fit, but now you're in movement. I believe that when you're in movement, the universe delivers probably what you really do need, but you have to be curious first to seek something out for it to find you. Because if you're sitting behind your door looking down and thinking, no, not for me, not for me, guess what? It's not for you, right? Your thoughts really do become your reality.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna, you're just a love, and your calmness is wonderful. You could say I have high energy, so I love the yin and yang that we have, my Jersey accent there, but the yin and yang that we had with our energy was just lovely with the show. So thank you so much. Before we tune out, guys, I want to share Krishna with you. Email her if you have a question. It's Krishna@KrishnaAvalon.com, website KrishnaAvalon.com. All will be in the show notes. And you do have a resource page for everyone, KrishnaAvalon.com/resources. Again, it will be in the show notes. What will they find on that page, Krishna?
Some somatic practices that can drop you in more to the feeling state, what we call heart-brain coherence, regulate your nervous system, practice coming out of the fight or flight and trying to figure stuff out, look for problems, all that kind of stuff. You want to practice dropping into parasympathetic, where you can rest and digest. There is also a very big breath work practice on there for clearing trapped emotion off of the body. So there are just some practices and some meditations on there. You can get a sense of how powerful those can be. With just a couple minutes of time. You can also just get a sense more of how I work with people.
Yeah, get a flavor. If you've never heard of Psych-K, you've never heard of this type of work, or you've heard of it, but never really explored it. Maybe Krishna, her energy and these resources that she's sharing will help you become familiar and become curious. That's what I always hope for my listeners, Krishna, is that they become curious of the topic, the person, and saying, how does this fit? How does this feel for me? And then take the action, right? But you got to make sure it's something that resonates with you, right? Don't just jump into the deep end. So that's why I always try to have my guests offer some type of free resource, because it gives my listeners an opportunity to get to know you and say, this is not for me, or, whoa, I'm really curious now. Let me dig in a little bit deeper and email you or buy one of your programs, whatever the next step is for the listener itself. So thank you so much for being on and sharing your zone of genius with us, and just sharing those little tips and nuggets. And I think allowing us to realize we can have it all. Good and bad things happen to all of us. We're human. Life is life. We have a human experience, but we really can have it all if you change the subconscious mind. And I think that's where the magic happens. And that's really what the conversation was about today. So thank you so much. I really appreciate our show and our conversation today.
It was so much fun talking to you. Thanks, Connie.
Same. Thank you. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are on your journey of change. I truly hope my guests and our conversation, the strategies and tips that Krishna shared today, my stories, if they impact you from an understanding standpoint, I hope it helps you become more curious of how you can become better at or better with, and you fill in the blank, whatever that piece of change that you're encountering right now in your life. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I truly am honored to have you on your journey of change with me and with my guests. And I hope that you find value every week. Remember, information is a beautiful thing. If you do nothing with it, simply information. As soon as you take that information and put it into action, one of the tips, two of the tips, three of the tips that Krishna shared today, I promise you life will change right before your eyes. Enjoy your change. Thanks for tuning in. I love you all, and I will see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Thanks again.